Today I would like to invite you to listen to the Dhammapada of the Buddha Shakyamuni. 146 verses from the Buddhist scriptures on the YouTube channel Thien Thai in the USA. What is laughter? What is joy when the world is ever burning? Shrouded by darkness, would you not seek the light? Thus the Blessed One spoke, calling all beings to awaken from the illusion of transient happiness and fleeting pleasures. In the days of the Buddha, many disciples were captivated by worldly amusements, fleeting laughter, and temporary comfort, believing that joy and contentment resided in these forms. Yet the Buddha, perceiving the impermanence and suffering that pervade the world, spoke this verse to reveal a deeper reality. There was once a young monk who observed his fellow villagers celebrating festivals, laughing, feasting, and indulging in all manner of pleasures. Yet he also noticed the suffering that lay beneath their smiles: illness, loss, conflict, and fear. The Buddha, seeing the monk's concern and potential for insight, taught him this verse, asking him to look beyond surface delight and perceive the pervasive fire of craving, aversion, and ignorance that consumes beings. The young monk reflected deeply, realizing that laughter and joy, when based on attachment or delusion, could not extinguish the fires of suffering in the world. He understood that true peace, genuine joy, and lasting contentment arise not from fleeting amusements, but from awakening, from seeking the light of wisdom, virtue, and mindfulness. The fire of the world manifests in countless ways: in the turbulence of thoughts, the grasping of desire, the clinging to transient forms, and the endless pursuit of pleasure and avoidance of pain. To laugh without awareness is to obscure the burning within. To rejoice without insight is to hide from the shadows that linger in every heart. The Buddha's verse illuminates the necessity of seeking the light, awakening to the truth of impermanence, suffering, and non-self, and cultivating the path that leads to liberation. The young monk began to train his mind, observing the arising and passing of sensations, thoughts, and emotions. He practiced mindfulness, restraining unwholesome speech and action, and cultivated understanding through meditation and reflection. Slowly, he discovered that true joy is not a transient flicker, but the steady illumination of insight. Peace arose not from the absence of difficulty, but from the clarity and freedom that insight brings. In this way, the Buddha's words serve as both a warning and an inspiration. Laughter and joy, when ungrounded, cannot sustain the heart. Darkness surrounds every being, and only the light of understanding can provide safety, clarity, and liberation. Through this teaching, the disciple realized that seeking the light does not mean rejecting the world entirely, but seeing it with wisdom, responding to its challenges with compassion, and cultivating inner clarity amidst impermanence and suffering. True joy arises when the fires of craving, aversion, and delusion are subdued through mindfulness, concentration, and virtuous conduct. This understanding allowed the young monk to live among the world with awareness, not escaping it, yet not being consumed by its fleeting pleasures and distractions. By seeking the light, he discovered a deeper freedom, a steadiness of mind, and a gentle clarity of heart that sustained him in all circumstances. The Buddha's verse, therefore, guides all beings to awaken to the reality beneath appearances, to cultivate insight amidst laughter and sorrow alike, and to recognize that the ultimate refuge, The true source of enduring peace lies in wisdom, virtue, and mindfulness. In the light that shines clearly even in the midst of darkness, fire, and impermanence. As one reflects more deeply on this teaching, the nature of joy and laughter is revealed to be subtle, fleeting, and dependent upon circumstances beyond our control. The Buddha calls attention to the ever-burning world, not to incite fear, but to awaken discernment and care. When the mind clings to transient pleasures, it is like a leaf drifting on a stormy river, tossed and turned by waves, never finding stability. Laughter that arises from attachment, or joy that rests upon passing phenomena, provides only a brief illusion of ease, while the fires of craving, aversion, and ignorance continue to burn beneath the surface. To see the world as ever-burning is to recognize the pervasiveness of suffering, the impermanence of all things, and the subtle dangers of unwholesome habits that take root when the mind is distracted by superficial delight. The young monk, inspired by the Buddha's teaching, began to examine the layers of his own heart, noticing how quickly amusement could give rise to pride, how pleasure could strengthen desire, and how distraction could weaken mindfulness. He saw that even as he laughed or rejoiced at seemingly harmless events, subtle attachments and tendencies persisted, binding him to repeated patterns of suffering. The Buddha's words serve as a guide for the practitioner to move beyond superficial happiness and to cultivate the light of wisdom. This light is the illumination of insight, the understanding of impermanence, the discernment of craving and aversion, and the cultivation of clarity and virtue. When the mind is trained to perceive the world with such light, it sees suffering where previously it was hidden, recognizes the impermanent nature of pleasures that were once clung to, and gradually learns to respond with skillful action rather than reactive impulse. This practice does not deny the joys of life, but transforms them, giving depth and stability to experience. The monk practiced meditation diligently, observing thoughts as they arose, noting each impulse toward desire or aversion, and gently redirecting the mind toward awareness and compassion. He reflected on the impermanence of all things, the passing of seasons, the aging of the body, the change of friends and circumstances, the inevitability of loss. Through these reflections, laughter lost its power to distract, and joy was transformed into a calm, steady delight that arose from clarity and understanding. The fires of the world, the suffering of beings, the turbulence of mind, the pull of craving and aversion were still present. But the monk no longer suffered helplessly in their flames. Instead, he cultivated mindfulness, concentration, and virtuous conduct, creating a steady inner light that illuminated each situation, guiding thought, word, and deed. In observing the human condition, the Buddha teaches that many beings mistake fleeting pleasure for true happiness. Festivals, entertainment, indulgence, praise, and applause may produce smiles and laughter, yet underneath these appearances lie impermanence, dissatisfaction, and subtle anxiety. When the mind identifies with passing phenomena, it is easily agitated, disappointed, or distressed when circumstances change. Only by cultivating insight and wisdom can one achieve a joy that is not dependent on external conditions. The light that the Buddha points to is the wisdom that perceives impermanence, the discernment that observes the causes of suffering, the clarity that recognizes the illusions of self, and the compassion that responds to beings with understanding rather than reactivity. The practitioner who seeks this light begins to live with gentle attention, responding to difficulties with patience, to delight with moderation, and to suffering with compassion. This process transforms the heart, shaping the mind into a vessel that is not consumed by the flames of craving, attachment, or ignorance. The young monk saw that true joy is not superficial amusement, but the steady warmth of clarity, the quiet satisfaction of virtue, the peaceful contentment of a mind at ease, and the gentle radiance of a heart attuned to reality. He began to walk among others with kindness and compassion, aware of the impermanence around him, yet no longer attached to passing forms or shallow delights. Every encounter became an opportunity to cultivate awareness, to practice patience, and to share the light of understanding. The Buddha's verse thus reminds all practitioners to examine the source of their joy and laughter, to see whether it is fleeting and dependent on circumstance, or whether it arises from insight, clarity, and virtue. By seeking the light, the disciple frees themselves from the fires of the world, learns to respond skillfully to life's challenges, and experiences a profound peace that transcends superficial amusement. The world may continue to burn with desire, aversion, and ignorance, yet the mindful practitioner cultivates an inner radiance that is steady, compassionate, and illuminating, guiding each step, each action, and each thought with care and wisdom. Laughter and joy, when aligned with mindfulness and insight, become expressions of peace rather than distraction. Moments of delight arise naturally from understanding rather than ignorance. The disciple learns to walk the path steadily, moment by moment, breath by breath, shaping the mind with virtue, concentration, and awareness, and gradually bringing the fires of suffering under the light of wisdom. As the practitioner reflects ever more deeply on the Buddha's teaching, the understanding of joy, laughter, and the human condition becomes both intimate and transformative. The Buddha calls attention to the impermanence and pervasive suffering of the world, not to instill despair, but to awaken clarity and compassionate awareness. In a world ever burning with desire, aversion, ignorance, loss, and separation, the fleeting pleasures of laughter and superficial joy cannot extinguish the inner fire of suffering. Even as people celebrate and indulge, the underlying reality of impermanence persists, unseen by those who are attached to transient forms. The wise practitioner, however, sees clearly that while the senses may be entertained and the mind briefly amused, true freedom arises only from cultivating insight and virtue, from seeking the light of understanding within. The young monk, inspired by the Buddha's words, dedicated himself to this path. He observed the arising of pleasant and unpleasant sensations, noting how fleeting they were, how quickly they passed, and how their seeming joy was temporary. He recognized that attachment to laughter or amusement without awareness could strengthen craving, deepen delusion, and perpetuate suffering. Each moment became an opportunity for mindfulness, a chance to train the mind in restraint, concentration, and insight. As he walked, ate, and interacted with others, he applied careful attention to his actions and thoughts, observing how attachment, aversion, or indifference subtly shaped experience. Gradually, he realized that joy is not absent in such practice, but arises differently. It is not a reaction to external stimuli, but a deep satisfaction born from clarity, self-mastery, and compassion. The fires of the world, the turbulence of thoughts, the pull of desire, the fleeting nature of pleasure, and the inevitability of loss no longer controlled him, because the light of mindfulness illuminated each impulse before it could lead to harm. In seeing clearly, the monk discovered that laughter and joy, when grounded in awareness and guided by wisdom, could become expressions of peace, understanding, and gentle delight rather than distraction or escape. The Buddha's teaching thus does not deny the experience of pleasure, but redefines it, showing that the highest joy arises from insight, not indulgence, from clarity, not illusion, from the cultivation of virtue, mindfulness, and compassion, rather than the pursuit of passing amusement. The world may burn around the practitioner with the fires of suffering, the chaos of attachment, and the turbulence of desire. Yet the mind trained in vigilance and insight remains steady, clear, and radiant. The practice of mindfulness allows one to observe the arising of joy and suffering without being consumed, to meet challenges with patience, and to respond to others with kindness and understanding. In this way, every interaction becomes an opportunity for wisdom, every difficulty a teacher, and every moment of clarity a step toward liberation. The young monk saw that the true light, which the Buddha urged all beings to seek, is not an external object, but a quality of mind and heart. Awareness, understanding, compassion, and insight. These qualities illuminate the world, revealing the impermanence of pleasures, the subtlety of attachment, and the way to freedom from suffering. When one cultivates these qualities diligently, the fires of craving, aversion, and ignorance gradually diminish, and the mind experiences an enduring peace and clarity that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. The Buddha's verse also reminds the practitioner of the urgency of the path. To be shrouded by darkness is to remain unaware of the true nature of existence, to be consumed by fleeting amusements, and to fail to perceive the suffering that underlies worldly experience. Laughter and joy, while natural and often wholesome in moderation, must be accompanied by insight. Otherwise, they merely obscure the fire that burns in the heart of all beings. By seeking the light, the practitioner cultivates the qualities that allow one to act skillfully, speak wisely, and think clearly, bringing relief to oneself and radiating calm and understanding to others. This light is not dependent on circumstances. It does not flicker with changing conditions, but arises from the steady cultivation of virtue, mindfulness, concentration, and insight. Through daily practice, each breath, each step, each action becomes an opportunity to deepen understanding and refine conduct. The practitioner learns to meet joy with moderation, suffering with equanimity, and life itself with awareness and care. Laughter becomes a reflection of clarity and gentleness rather than distraction or attachment, and joy transforms into the calm delight of a mind free from clinging. The fires of the world may continue to burn, but the practitioner moves through life with inner light, responding to circumstances with patience, skill, and compassion, gradually diminishing the causes of suffering for oneself and for others. In this way, the verse teaches that the pursuit of fleeting pleasure is not the path to freedom, but that the diligent seeking of wisdom, the cultivation of virtue, and the mindful illumination of the heart constitute the light that dispels darkness, extinguishes inner fires, and brings lasting peace. The disciple who walks this path experiences laughter not as mere amusement, but as the gentle reflection of a mind that has learned freedom. Joy is not dependent on circumstance, but arises from the clarity of awareness and the deep satisfaction of living in accordance with truth. The Buddha's teaching calls all beings to awaken, to perceive the impermanence and suffering in the world, and to seek the light that leads to liberation. The young monk's transformation illustrates this principle by observing, practicing, and cultivating insight. He found peace and clarity amidst the chaos of the world. The fires around him no longer consumed him, for the light within guided every step, every thought, and every action, revealing the profound and gentle path of liberation. As this teaching comes to its conclusion, the heart rests in the understanding that laughter and joy, while natural, are impermanent and cannot remove suffering unless grounded in insight. The Buddha's verse reminds us that the world is ever burning with desire, aversion, and ignorance, and that the mind must seek the light of wisdom, mindfulness, and virtue. By cultivating these qualities, the practitioner illumines each moment, transforming fleeting amusement into the steady radiance of understanding, responding to suffering with compassion, and navigating life with clarity and skill. The path to liberation is walked moment by moment, breath by breath, through careful observation, persistent effort, and gentle cultivation of insight. This is the light that dispels darkness, the peace that calms the mind, and the joy that arises from freedom from attachment and delusion. Thank you for watching my video. Namo Amitabha. I wish to bring this merit towards all disciples and sentient beings, all of whom will attain Buddhahood. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate your time.